I need to recommend a good study Bible for Jason after he gets baptized. I got a whole bunch, but they're King James. I want a commentary and a red letter. Have anything? Or, well, can you write? I need a good study Bible for him.
What'd you get? Oh, you're talking about a chronicle? Are you talking about a chronological? Are you talking, Phyllis? Are you talking about a chronological? Right. No, you're talking about.
What's your face?
Oh, a timeline.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, Swiss chart. Yeah. Bless her heart. In the refrigerator. Okay.
Oh, is that what that was? I thought that was trash. I threw it out when I dumped the cat can back there in the
You tossed the Swiss chard?
that cat can garbage was full. I hope not. Emptied it. Emptied it.
How are you?
Tied it up, turned it over, and just wiggled it out until it came out. Past disgusting. It wouldn't go, so I set it beside the dumpster. Sorry, honey. But, well, I tried. And I can take it and put it in my car. Are you okay? I seen you back there working, but it was too hot. Told me he had a ride. Bill? You didn't want to look at your book.
Ooh, take a quick look while we have a minute. We just got this brand new book on the tabernacle.
I already looked at it.
Rachel and her daughter have new birthday. No. That's the trouble. You have to keep a poker face and just not say anything.
Yep. No, that's easy to do. Matters.
Yeah. Bell letter first for airmen.
Oh, yeah, they thought they were going to die.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Isn't
Is
it
that the
that?
one where the airman sat down and refused to go on?
Yeah, one guy, but
From
she
Canada.
finally, she
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 said,
said,
girlfriend, and he goes, you're not playing fair.
but he finally says, Alice, she said, well, do it for Alice, and it worked.
That's when he said, you're not playing fair.
What was that triumphant message she got to send? The nightingale has landed.
Has sung.
Has sung.
Has sung.
Oh,
The
has sung. I couldn't
nightingale has
remember
sung.
how they put it. Okay, the nightingale.
Oh, yeah, right? Good thing I didn't give him no money. Interference.
Yeah.
Oh, and Vianne almost died. Beck had the Alperian to that. I would sure like to know. Christian, that guy, I'll call him Gaetan. He was a random stranger that she bumped into. He hates the Germans. I don't understand why she has feeling for him. I think she ought to be hooked up with that Henri. That's what I think, but we'll see how this all plays out.
Nah,
Nah, yes, yes.
no, her ain't got time.
All
You'll
right,
get it. It's a passionate thing.
okay.
It's a love at first sight thing.
I guess. That's all I can explain. He's not Mr. Nice. He just got out of prison. He beat her up before he left her. I mean,
He didn't beat her up.
well, she was beaten up when she came to, but I don't know who did it. I don't know who did it, frankly.
Yeah, 151.
Okay. 151 to 175, 115.
Take a gaze at that.
Yeah, that's our pretty new book.
Wonderful. I forgot to put my food down. To the floor. I hate when they're on the inside. And after I read, we're not supposed to eat them.
Or the fire. Well, it'll have to be kind of high up.
I can't eat it, but it's my favorite of mine.
But I finally got an answer to an age-old question that not even Rabbi can answer.
Excellent.
See if you guys agree with me.
So that's the tabernacle. They also have the temple. Ah, chicken. You can. Every chicken liver you can have. Ah,
Yep. They're too cheap.
no.
Yes.
I'm sure they must be.
Yes, you know, well, they're good.
Well, he says the livers, the fat lobe, the kidneys, so all y'all that eat that stuff, you're wrong. Chickens aren't a sacrifice. That's true. But,
Turtle doves and pigeons.
but,
And it says whichever one
all
you can
fat.
afford, my mom's thinking.
but all fat and all blood,
The most expensive.
Can't be.
and that's what he calls the internal organs. And you gotta throw the kidneys, the livers, that's any animal. So period.
Yeah.
You go to a Jewish butcher and there's nothing,
Kosher butcher.
nothing missing. They eat everything. They make a kind of a hot dog sausage out of cow jowls.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
So, Paul, which was the most expensive back in the day? The turtle dove or the pigeon? It said whichever one you could afford.
Well, pigeon is more expensive.
the pigeon is more expensive?
Pigeon is more expensive than the turtle dove. Turtle dove's just this little teeny.
Yeah, but pigeons are rats with wings.
Well, yeah, a lot of meat on a rat.
Well, see, the Brits eat rat too.
That it made me think the pigeons were the cheaper because the order that it was said, it said turtle dove or pigeon.
Yeah.
I
But-
figured the first thing it said was the most expensive, but it made me wonder.
The theological point to be made about Jesus and him being go to the brisk with his parents at the synagogue was they were poor and they used turtle dove because the turtle dove is the cheapest, so it shows that they were the poorest of the poor of the poor.
All right, let's pray before we go into
Before we start.
Let's pray. Let's pray.
Oh.
Oh, really?
Almighty God, Father of our Lord Jesus Christ,
Ah.
grant us, we pray, that we might be grounded and settled in your truth by the coming of your Holy Spirit into our hearts. What we do not know, reveal to us. What is lacking within us, make complete. To which we do know, confirm in us, and keep us blameless in your service through Christ, Jesus Christ our Lord.
Oh, well, that's a great prayer. Thank you.
Yeah, you've got it right there. Amber. Father, I lift all of those that are struggling emotionally with depression and isolation and all of those things that have come about. Not that they didn't exist before COVID-19, but that COVID-19 has sort of heightened them. People are on edge. People are feeling differently. Some people's worlds have been turned upside down and inside out, and they're just reeling. And so, Father, I just want to throw a plea out there for you to look after those people,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
to help those that are struggling with this depression, with this overwhelming sense of hopelessness, and that have, allowed themselves to slip back into the slow of despond and can't quite find solid footing to get back to where things used to be. I pray for them, Father, and I ask that you be closer to them and that you show them by bringing somebody to cross paths with them, by hearing something on the radio, by inviting them into a church or driving by and getting an invitation they had never thought to accept before. But find a way, Father, to draw them close as only you can, because you are relentless in your pursuit of your people. And so, Father, I thank you for that relentless pursuit that chases us down, grabs hold of us, and spins us around and looks us in the eye and grasps a hold of our heart and says, I love you and you are bigger than all of this. And I want to thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Father, I just thank you for your faithfulness to us
Amen.
and just how awesome and how great you are. And the love that you have for us. And you've called us together, and I thank you, Lord, for this time that we could come together and go over and study and discuss and talk about your word. So, Father, may you be blessed. And, Father, I just pray again that the COVID-19 would be eradicated in the name of Jesus. We just come against it. I'm tired of hearing about it.
Yeah.
Tired of it.
Yes, am I.
Lord, eradicate it. Put a stop to all the silliness that the media and others are trying to bring it and increase it even more and more. Bring the truth out, Lord. Help us to see and know it, that we can walk in your truth. And so we thank you, Lord. And I thank you again, Lord, as we continue to be that you protect us, that you are here, that we can come under your wings, and that you will bring healing to our bodies, and you have brought healing to this body, and we can stand on that. And we know that you are faithful in all that you do and in all that you say. So, Father, be blessed tonight as we come together and as we study your word. We give you the honor and the glory in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So we are somewhere in Leviticus.
Very beginning.
Still.
Yeah, that's right. If you would do Wednesday to Wednesday, you would know. 151.
151.
151 to 175.
Yeah.
Yep.
is,
Basically, Leviticus 1:1 to the end of chapter 14.
14, right.
Thank you.
Right. And next week it'll be to the end of Leviticus.
I have a question on page 151. It kind of breaks it down, like Leviticus has got like breakdowns, except, and I was kind of trying to look for them, and I saw the types of offerings. That was pretty clear.
151?
Yeah, the introduction.
Yeah.
One-
The
page
immersed in
151.
Leviticus.
That's not the Bible.
It's the explanation, and it's 1, 2, 3, the third paragraph, and it talks about the 4 different breakdowns
Yeah.
of things that are covered, 4 major groups of instruction. And I could see in the beginning the types of offerings, so my assumption was the second section was the how you lose a state of cleanliness, and how you become unclean, how you become clean.
Right.
But I wasn't sure when I hit page, I was trying to find that place, and so I figured it was, I came up with a spot that it wasn't. My assumption was, at the end of 165, the third paragraph, that we were at the end of the offering. Oh, no, we're not. And then you had that incident with Nadab and Abahu.
Yeah.
And then you had all these conditions. I just didn't know where the next breakdown was. Because where I thought it was is not where it was. I don't, and what would it mean?
I think it goes into this week's reading as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never
Really
got to the
start.
end, so I thought it just keeps
Well,
going
it's not going to be in the first
skin,
half.
skin, and mildew, and burns, and infectious disease. So I just never felt like I got to the
You
end.
got
So maybe I
15 you got
did.
15 more chapters.
Okay. So maybe I didn't get to it yet.
Right.
All right.
All right.
If you, if you read week to week instead of Wednesday to Wednesday, I think you would see.
Poke that bear. I would never do that.
Yeah,
Well, I, like Phyllis, got something out of the intro to Leviticus. The very last sentence on page 152. It starts, it's the third line from the bottom. It says, "He chooses to accomplish his purposes for the world through his people, and if necessary, God himself will redeem his people so they can complete their work." And I thought, how assuring
Okay.
and reassuring that is. I thought that was awesome.
I mean, no matter what his people do, he always takes them back.
Yeah, no matter what they do.
Yep.
right.
In fact, that line right
Okay, yeah.
before that last paragraph says, God will never forget his
Funny or
covenant with his people. That's right. So, I mean, that says, like you just said it. And I have always loved words in the Bible that start with R-E, like redemption,
Generation.
rejuvenation, restoration. Yeah,
Oh,
reclaim, repurchased, recovering, redemption, and it used those words in the end rest. Yeah, Mike, that's good.
Oh.
I'm not sure that's the same.
Oh,
Hey, well,
Rest.
we all need rest, don't we?
there's no reached.
Well, I know, but it started with RE, so.
That's right. But I just love it that he is always willing to redo.
So
And
does
he doesn't
Renegade.
expect perfection. He never has.
No.
But he will redeem anything. or resurrection starts with R-E. I have a whole,
Oh, yeah.
one whole page of re-words that I just, when I see them, I just write.
Oh, cool.
But there was
Oh,
4 of them
gosh.
right there in that one little thing.
All right, so we're Leviticus, right?
Yes.
Well, I learned something interesting about the layout of the tabernacle and the courtyard I'd never noticed before in all of my in-depth studies 3 times into the first 5 books of the Bible, and I never noticed this before. The ashes were on the east side
Where you at?
of
She's
the,
way ahead. She's
Oh.
behind. That's-
no,
When is
blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you what page that was on. East, ashes on the east side. Where does it say ashes on the east side?
They had to take the ashes out.
Yeah, 153.
I should not,
153, second line from the bottom.
all right?
Well, starting from the third line. For the priest must also remove the crop and the feathers and throw them in the ashes on the east side of the altar. So I thought, the ashes are on the east side of the altar. I wonder if that's because God's presence is this way, and as it looks that way, it can't see the east side of the altar, so that's, of course, where you're going to throw the trash. So God doesn't see it. It's not in his line of sight. I thought,
But he sees
Oh, I
everything.
thought the whole
Cool.
tabernacle and everything was facing east.
It does face
It
east.
does.
it does face east.
Yeah.
So
that
the east
means
side of the altar.
would be too.
Well, so if it's facing
Means
east,
the
that means
altar
the
would be
entrance goes
west
that way.
of-
That means the altar's right here,
And the Holy of Holies west.
and the
Right.
Holy of Holies is this way. So the
Yeah.
east side of the altar is on the side where the Holy of Holies doesn't have a line of sight to it.
Right. If you're standing at the door, you're looking west.
Right.
Huh?
If you're standing at the entrance looking out, you're looking east.
Correct.
Right.
So the Holy of Holies looks east. So if there's an obstruction in the middle, and if that wood thing is the burnt altar, and the east side of that is where all the trash is, that means if you're standing at the Holy of Holies looking at the burnt offering, you're not going to see the trash on the other side of it.
Interesting.
This
Neil.
is the south.
The east side of the altar is gonna face
The entrance,
the entrance.
like the tithe box. Can you see the tithe box? That's on the east side. Let's say this is the tabernacle.
What does my seeing the tithe box have anything to do?
It's like the,
I mean, our tithe box, if you wanna look at it, our tithe box is facing west.
Okay,
Because
but,
our front door is
You've got the
facing
book right there.
west.
okay, well, let's make pretend that that's all east and that where Bill is
That's
sitting is the
east.
burnt offering and that we're
That's the
sitting in the
burnt
Holy of Holies with God in his presence.
Throws it to the
If we look from the ark towards the burnt offering, the ashes are on the other side behind the wall where the tithe box is. So God doesn't have a line of sight to the ashes. Oh, just go show 'em.
I can see it on here.
Just go show him.
There's
God's in
ashes.
here, everything's facing east,
Go
so
show
the
him.
ashes have to be sitting there where,
what's
yeah,
I
God
just
wouldn't see
don't, I
it.
don't picture God just sitting in the Holy of Holies.
Well, I know, but it says he would meet with you face to face. So if God is looking here, meeting with Moses, he's not
What's
seeing
the
all the trash
important-
on the side of the altar.
You didn't say that, okay?
Why
I
is
thought
this
that
so
was
important?
interesting.
It is,
no, she's just
for
saying,
sure.
Jesus is
Yeah.
returning in the east.
Makes sense to me. I don't want to
that
look
why
at
the-
trash.
Muslims planted all, put the, don't they have
Muslim.
no.
All right,
they put a
what else?
graveyard there.
Anyway,
Oh, I did see one thing too, I thought it was interesting, I hadn't thought about it. Where was it, on 154? Is that where? Yeah, after the cross, it's the 1, 2, 3. The fourth paragraph talks about don't use yeast.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, yeah.
preparing the grain
Right,
offering
here we
you
go.
present to the Lord, because yeast or honey may,
Mm-hmm.
may not, may be burned.
Right.
And I
Is it
said, honey,
special?
what's honey got to do with yeast? How does honey fit in there?
Honey makes the yeast rise.
What?
It will,
Because it's sugar.
yeah.
Honey is a
Maybe
natural
that's-
sugar.
It makes it sweeter, that's for sure.
It makes it,
Rise up.
But there's 2 times a year where
Yes.
when we get later in, 2 times a year where you're mandated to make the grain offering out of bread
Right.
with yeast.
Oh, no, it
That's the
clearly
next
says
line.
it in here, that there are certain offerings that you have to provide a variety
To
of
an offering of the first
breads
fruits of the
made
harvest.
without yeast,
Right.
and you have to have
That's what he's
loaves
saying.
of various kinds made with yeast, and they all have to be.
Yeah.
But
presented
yeast
before the
is
Lord.
never burned on the altar, so that offering must be one of those wave ones.
Right.
Where you have 2 loaves or
Yeah,
something.
it's a grain, wave offering, it's a grain offering.
Yeah,
Well, you know
okay.
what I found interesting is everybody remembers that no kosher diet has blood in it, so that's no gravy, no blah blah, no raw food, blah 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 blah.
What's
But it's
gravy got to do with it?
Gravy doesn't have blood in it.
whatever that they say. Well, anyways, never mind. Forget I said that. But
Gravy has
anyways,
no-
Meat juice.
I thought it was really meat juice is got blood in it,
That's not, no.
and that's
Definitely not
what
like
that's
liver.
what gravy's made out of. But anyways,
That's-
we'll forget it.
Is that
Anyways.
rendering? I don't know, whatever.
Says you must never eat any fat or blood. So it's not just blood, it's fat, and everybody forgets about that. So I guess
You're
that
so right. That really
no
jumped out
more
at me.
skin off KFC. Can't eat that no more.
You go
That's
to-
all
A lot of
fat.
these rules have to do with health.
I know.
I mean,
At
Right.
that, you go to a kosher butcher, the meat that you see in there doesn't look like the meat you see at Vaughn's or Smith's. It's kind of a different
Color?
hue or color because the blood is out of it.
Out of it.
And so with
Oh.
the blood out of it, it's kind of a different shade of red, and there is no fat.
More pale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is no
Yeah,
fat.
no
The
blood, no
is
fat.
removed.
And that's and when I was reading that, I was like, that's why Frank put oil in the hot dog soup. Hot dogs don't have kosher hot dogs don't have fat, so he, so he had to add oil.
because they answer to a higher authority.
That's right.
Well,
Come on
but
now.
kosher hot dogs
Have no fat.
come from the bull. If you draw a line from the withers, you know what a wither is?
Your
To the
shoulders
belly
like-
button, hot dogs only come from the forward part of the cow, not the
Not
rear
the
part
hind
of the
part.
cow.
That was one of the better
They sell
Hebrew
that.
national commercials.
The
Oh.
kosher butchers sell the
Answering to a-
We answer to
rear
a higher
part
authority.
to-
We don't put
selected
parts.
Christian,
Yeah, well, that's
Butchers.
what most of your steak is in the rear.
rump roast and all that,
So
Oh, yeah.
but kosher butchers don't deal with that.
your roasts are in the front.
You was a butcher.
But they'll only sell the
Father knew how to do all that too.
rump,
He'd always
the rear
go
side, to Christian butchers. They won't sell it to pagan
He was
or
the one with the
non-believing.
Interesting.
He'd buy the stuff and bring it home.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
And he'd try to explain that to me, you know, just let him
And too, in most of the burnt offerings and sacrifices, there was always the male. But when it came to the peace offering, it could be a male or female.
Yes. Because
But if a common person sinned, it
It's
was
just
a
a female.
female.
Yeah. Okay. Now I have a question. If you were a farmer, okay, which is the
know. Most
easiest?
of them were.
Which is the easiest thing to get rid of? You got cows that produce milk and calves,
Oh, brother, there you go.
or you have a bull. How many bulls do you need? Which is the easiest thing to get rid of?
Well, it's,
The bull.
that, but a bull's crucial to your wealth.
One.
A rooster,
If you-
know, like you
You
got
hit
a lot
on,
of hands in
you
one
hit
hand.
on part of it, and that is, I don't remember the number, because I used to deal with livestock when I was in Oregon with Karen. There is a formula of how many cows a
Per
bull can service.
Yes.
And so, and bulls are nasty creatures, right? Just like stallions.
with an attitude.
Stallion will kill
Yeah.
Right.
female
So-
horse.
It seems to me when they
But
were,
if you go to, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but if you
Oh.
go to a livestock auction and they're selling all these calves off, that's what they usually do. When it's calving season, they sell off the calves that they can't use or don't want. 80% of them are all males.
right,
They get a male calf, it's like oh, no. You know, because it's worthless to them. If you're in the,
Yeah.
I worked
business.
at Johnson Dairy, and so if you're in the dairy business, the
You don't
cow
need them
has to
anyway.
give birth to a calf for it to
Have
Milk.
have milk,
Lactate,
or it's not giving birth to it. And so everybody's praying for,
Female cat.
you know,
Right.
cow, please cow. If you get
Well, you know,
if you
that's
get a
some.
steer, then it's like, ah. And a lot of times they'll take the steers right away and put them in to be, what's the kind,
Neutered?
what kind of meat that
Neutered.
I can't eat anymore?
Veal.
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 Oh, veal, yeah,
They'll
they
take
raise
a lot of
them.
the cows and
Yeah.
male cows and put them in the cages for
They
veal.
also castrate the males and then,
Right.
and then they're.
They'll raise them
they're
as
beef.
beef,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Then they can be raised
Yeah.
because it's not as tough.
Right. For a dairy guy, still, it-
No, but I knew a lot of,
so
Can't help
if you're,
the dairy
if
guy.
you're raising meat cows, that's fine.
yeah.
You could,
Well, that's what most of them are raised for.
but if you go, my experience is only with dairies.
With dairy.
And with the dairy,
Right, well-
steer is worthless.
Right. So I guess my thought
$15 for a, for
Yeah.
a,
Yeah, they're cheap.
they were cheap.
in God's economy, the male from the herd or the male from the flock was the important one. But if you were in today's time, it would probably be the female would be more of a sacrifice than the
Depend-
male.
They're not
Depending
gonna
on what you're
sacrifice the
trying to
female.
raise.
Females, what expands their riches. You know, male doesn't expand nothing, but eat. But a female, you get more calves, you become richer and richer and richer.
I just, it was just a thought.
Yeah.
It
Well,
seemed
maybe
like,
there was some wisdom in that, saying that, you know, the wisdom of
But you
you're
make,
going to sacrifice the male because
You don't need
it's
that
not,
many
he's not as important to the overall picture of your herd.
there's a misconception in old world Judaism, and that is that women didn't have as much value as men or had much lesser value than men. And that's 180 degrees out. To God's thinking, the greater value is in the woman, not in the man. It says in the Talmud that the greatest creation that man has ever made by his own confession was womankind. So womankind he values greater than mankind. Mankind can slaughter each other, they can do all these crazy manly things, you know, which is protection and die, but the female is his greatest prize. And that's what old Judaism stands for. And so that was the reason why so many things changed with women in Judaism up until the birth of Christ, was that they were gaining more and more and more power and authority and all that kind of stuff, to the point where women, when Christ was alive, they could own their own property, they could own their own children, they could inherit, they could have a business, they could enter into contracts, they could hold lower offices in the government, okay? And within 200 years after the birth of Christ, women couldn't own property, women couldn't own their own children, they
That was
couldn't.
the Greeks that did that.
Yeah, yeah, and probably the Romans helped out, but,
Greeks,
They really are the better half.
tomato.
Brothers are the same way.
I found something interesting on 156. The second sentence of the second paragraph says, "But the people don't realize it. They are still guilty. Doesn't matter. You violate one of the Lord's commands, whether you realize it or not, you're still guilty."
It's the ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Exactly. Ignorance is no excuse. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting. Doesn't matter whether you realize it or not. Doesn't matter if you know it or not. You're guilty.
that's why when you say your blessings at night, you know, to the Lord, before you go to sleep, there's always the blessing to the unknown sin that you may have committed.
that
during the-
right?
Yeah,
Cool.
it's one of the 29 blessings during the day. It's ask forgiveness for the unknown
The
sin.
unknown
You never
sins.
know, and you might forget.
Yeah.
You never know, you know.
My flesh is wicked, and so, you know, and, through anxiousness or busyness, or just a passing thought.
That goes against my grain.
What?
Be- Because
Being held guilty for something you didn't know you
you
did?
talk about repenting, and repenting is doing an about face. How do you do an about face if you don't even know what you're doing wrong?
True, true.
Well,
Well,
he
never
brings that up
says-
later on.
It
He
never
does say
says here
repent.
that you,
You
uh,
just say repent. Okay.
he doesn't say that you give a sacrifice until you know.
Yes, right.
You're right.
He does. That's
So
what he
it's not a
says.
matter of trying to cover it.
And it's not just you realize it and a week later you bring, no, on the same day
Yeah.
that you realize,
Good point.
you must confess and you must present your offering before the Lord. So that implies to me, you do it before the sun goes down, the day you realize it.
Yes.
Don't wait around. But then that
Yeah,
was,
no waiting.
I guess my mind was thinking of that prayer, that blessing thing. You know, it's like, how do you repent if you don't know? Well, Lord, just cover anything that I've done that that doesn't.
I think if you're sensitive in the spirit, and we all are, I know for me, that if I'm busy and I've sinned or thought something, he always quickens me and reminds me.
Yeah, and then you can
I'm
repent.
always laying down, I'm always saying, forgive me, and before I pray, and
Right.
I should think of this before I eat. See, he just said, you don't say forgive me, but you start praying before you eat, because I'm so hungry. I just start praying and then I eat. God bless the food, amen. But, so I think he reminds us right
Yes.
away.
I do
Because he
too.
loves us so much.
And then you're free, and then you can turn around.
I think it's interesting too that the progression of the different kinds of animals. If the entire Israelite community sins, they have to bring a young bull as an offering. If a leader in Israel sins, then he brings a male goat as his offering.
Going down.
If the common people sin, then they've got to bring a female goat.
Right, I saw that.
And I thought,
That's
God knows who sinned by the type of offering on the sin offering.
He knows
Oh, it's a
any-
bull. It's got
He
to
knows
be.
anyway, but
It's got to be the high
I
priest.
think he knows anyway.
Right.
But how come different sin, different offering? I even had to mark them.
Yeah.
1, 2, look, I can't believe this. 1, the young bull. 2, sin offering was a male goat.
And then the female
The
goat.
community- Yeah, then the female goat, then over here the female lamb, and then the ram. Ooh, lordy.
to me, a lot of these regulations that he's laying out is to set his people apart from everybody else.
Yep,
Distinguished.
No one else has to do what he tells them to do.
that's right.
Right.
And it's not easy. I mean, you really got to be a scholar to keep everything straight.
To some degree.
Yeah, you know.
But other nations and other religions had sacrifices.
True.
And they did take animals and prepare them and sacrifice them and splatter the blood all over here and there and all that. Most sacrifices of other religions required you to drink the blood,
Right.
and that's why
We're
So, and that,
User said you don't drink the blood
Right.
because
right.
the life is in the blood, so you don't
Right.
drink.
You don't drink it.
It wasn't necessarily as clean animals, either. It wasn't
Oh, and it wasn't,
necessarily
they'd
as clean
sacrifice
animals.
pigs. I mean, hard to have those good baby back ribs if, you know.
My turn?
Good job.
Mike,
Oh,
Your
yeah.
turn.
All right, I'm right at the beginning of chapter 5, whatever page you're on there. Because I'm in my big Bible. But it's at, you can read it.
Yeah, that's page 157.
157.
Okay.
Right at the beginning, it says, if a person sins because he does not speak up, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the power of the tongue is very important, but the power of not speaking up
It's important too.
is
yeah.
just as
If you
important,
are a
and you
witness.
will be held
Yes.
responsible.
Yes.
All
Yeah,
right, so
that's-
later on, that was the first scripture. Now in
There it
4, chapter 5, verse 4, or if a person thoughtlessly takes an oath to do anything.
There's your
Yeah.
voice again.
thoughtlessly.
You have to,
Okay, so even if he just says it in passing, that he feels he doesn't even really mean it, but the words come out, he could be drunk and say something not even know
Sure
it,
he
not
could.
remember it. But God hears it, and he says, "Oh, Megan,
Well, the power of the
do
word.
this." But he'll not remember it. He'll wake up later, but it says when he learns of what he was not unaware. I mean, he was unaware, but when he learns of it, he'll be responsible.
he has to make it right.
Yep.
So the tongue,
Yeah. good
oh
point.
man, is
Now-
very important.
But kind of like what you were talking about, it says here, if you keep going, when you become aware
Yep,
of your guilt
Right.
in any of these
you
ways,
must
you
confess
must
your sin.
confess your sin.
Right.
So you have to become aware of it.
Yeah.
So ignorance is no excuse. But once you become aware,
Well, I think that's what Leslie was saying. The Holy
right,
Spirit
exactly.
make you
That's the summary of,
know what you did.
Well, I like what the immerse says right up there. You hit right on it. It says, if you are called to testify about something you have seen or that you know about, it is sinful to refuse to testify, and you will be punished for your sin.
oh, you
So
mean
you
like the
can't
world?
refuse.
You mean like the world says you're a rat if you tell us something about
Right.
somebody?
You're accountable for what
That's
you
not what
see.
God
But
said.
you are accountable
You're
for
a
what
dirty
you
rat.
see, you know?
Yeah.
I saw a situation.
And if you have the power by your testimony to bring to light something
Bring the truth into a
everybody's not
situation, yeah.
aware of, whether it's the truth or not the truth. It says to testify, period. Whether it's of that person's guilt or whether it's of that person's innocence. It doesn't say which is which. You can't refuse.
I wondered. Oh,
No,
sorry.
I'm just saying about this, if you see, animal being abused,
Okay.
or you see somebody, an elderly being abused, or you know of a child, you have to report it. Some people say, nope, 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 that's not my business. You saw it. It is your business. I don't care how much you wanna deny it, but if you actually saw it, you're accountable for what you say and you gotta report it. How
Yeah.
can you not?
Yeah.
So every time I say, okay, God, like, on the way home, there's this man, he got all kinds of animals, and I just like, okay, if I don't see it, I've gotta be responsible for it. Because if I am, I turn in and I stop calling right away. Cause I'm that anal about seeing things, about being honest about what you see. Yeah.
What, our court system, doesn't it have protection, like, you don't have to testify if it's your husband that's guilty and you saw it, that you don't have to testify?
And you don't have to testify.
Right, but
But
God doesn't
not,
say it.
that's not here, no, that's different.
That's
different.
That's a
human.
Well,
legal, that's a legal distinction.
Yeah, and I like how
Not a- not a
humans
right and wrong
legislate laws to lessen it. Like, for instance, if a child was a victim of a crime, they're not made to testify.
It doesn't say that.
And refusing to testify,
Well,
and then how does, you've got a right to face your accuser, but it's a minor, so it doesn't count. You know, I mean, you know, we legislate laws that don't make sense sometimes.
Sometimes.
But I
Most
thought in
times.
some cases, they are asking the children to testify, such
well, it's a slippery, it's a
Oh, that's a
dangerous
new
slope
book. Have a look.
Yeah.
with kids. Because you can almost tell a kid, this is what happened, and they'll go, okay, that's what happened.
I'm
Well,
gonna make you
that's the
You know what I
tell
mean?
this.
It's
and
a
you
very
have to-
dangerous.
And that's probably why they don't allow them to
Well,
testify.
and it's because they don't know yet.
Yeah.
A lot of kids, unfortunately.
Well, that's really a
But that's the
crazy,
parents' fault.
Right.
especially when there's serious situations like children being molested.
and
Most of the problems with children and adults is bad parenting.
Yep,
It's, oh well.
yep,
Carelessness.
yep.
Anyway, that's not Bible study.
Paul, do you have some homework?
I thought I did when I was driving here, and for life, I couldn't remember what the homework was.
When
One
you
of
were
the
bringing
things-
that book,
One of the things
back
that I
last
noticed
week, last week.
was, there's this section that talk about mold on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, further on,
Yeah, that's
That's
recent.
next week.
mildew.
A lot of the homes in that area in that time, they didn't have solid, hard roofs. A lot of them had thatches
Right.
with
Water
palm
would
fronds
seep
or whatever
in
you
it.
call those
It would
things.
seep in.
Okay.
You know, and so even though they didn't have a lot of rain, they did have rain upon occasion, and the walls would get wet. And so the walls that were on the, say, the wall that would be the south-facing outside wall, the inside is always in the shade. When they get wet, they get moldy because of the plaster. And so mold was always present. Mold was always a concern.
They even mentioned stones.
Yep.
When the wall became, when there was mildew on the wall, it said that you could even take out that little portion of stones and plaster.
Yes.
And it would
and
have to
then
be
replace
scraped.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
And if they scraped it, then you had to take all the scrapings out to outside of
And then
the-
it had to be
Outside of the
replastered.
community, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
it was replastered and it came back, then the house had to be destroyed, well,
Burned.
re-examined and then destroyed.
and then burned. Yes.
But
Very
they,
interesting.
they would examine it to see what kind of mold they were dealing with.
Yeah, the color of it and all that.
Because if it was,
Right. It was
if it was
reddish
red
or
mold,
brownish,
they'd
they
say,
had-
don't
that
worry
was the
about scrape it
problem.
off and paint it, don't worry about it. But if
Yeah.
it's black mold, you know, ooh, okay, we gotta do something about this.
Right.
I just can't picture taking a wall out, or a part of a wall.
It said it.
Were all the houses double walled? Or if you took those out, is it daylight?
Depends on how they were made, I don't know.
Wouldn't it just be a hole and
They
you
were
just plug up the hole?
Adobe type, right?
Yeah.
They're Adobe type
I thought they had
buildings.
stones in them.
This one had stones in it.
But some of them, I guess it depended on what material you had available at the time.
Yeah, what material you had on
If there was a
hand.
lot of stones around, then you built with
You may have
stones and
small
adobe.
river rock in it, who knows?
I don't think the Israelites had to build their first homes. I
No,
think
they
went-
lived in the ones that they
lived in the
conquered.
ones that the people who were living there, they just came in.
Oh,
and
when
just-
they came into the Canaan, yeah, they just
just-
occupied the dwellings that were already
Yeah.
there. Yeah, true.
So,
And then
not
they
there yet.
probably just expanded from there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, you know, so-and-so and so-and-so has a house, but I'll just build my own, and that was probably when they started building. It's after they settled in.
so that's probably another reason that they had to be careful about, he even, they weren't even living in homes when they were in the wilderness,
Yeah,
but
tents,
he
Tents.
gives this little excerpt, now, when you get there, there's gonna be houses, and you gotta watch out for this mildew problem.
Well, that's,
And that's probably because these houses were owned by people who didn't worry about mildew.
Heathens.
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 And that would be the
Yeah.
word. And they needed to probably watch and be careful because they didn't build the houses. And
yeah, well, that's why a lot of, when he starts laying out a lot of these rules, he's saying, now, the people where you're going, they do that, that's why you're not gonna do this.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
And that's why I'm forcing them away and letting you, because they do bad.
I didn't know that when you gave an offering, I always thought the priest did everything, but the person is the one that.
Actually has to come
Or
and
sometimes
slap
lays their
right
hand
in
on the
front.
head and the person had to slit the throat of the animal? Oh,
And sometimes it said right in there, with your own hands,
Yeah,
present this to the Lord.
slaughtered.
And you done,
So
You
some
That
of
was
it's
part of
the-
living
some
back
of it's
then,
not.
though.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
yeah,
nothing,
yeah.
it's not like today. I
It's
mean,
true. Where we make
you
a
did
habit out
that.
of everything.
I mean,
You
if
did
you wanted
that
to eat, you
from
slaughtered
childhood
what you
on
ate.
up. You had to do things
So-
like that, yeah.
some of the people are doing that now, they think it's better meat, cheaper.
Well.
Yeah, meat, the meat today is through the ceiling.
I grew up in Los Angeles, and
It's
in
okay.
in the
We'll
eighties,
forgive you.
80s, I moved to Eugene, Oregon on a farm. Wow, what a difference,
Yes.
you know, because
Oh, heck, yeah.
suddenly,
Two
different
I,
worlds.
I would hate to tell you the story I witnessed on birthing of sheep, birthing of cows, and what do you do? My allergies are killing me. What do you do if a cow is having trouble,
Right.
a calf?
Turn it or something.
And they would tie that, it was like, oh, really?
If you ever watch
You
Dr.
back
Paul,
up
cut the chain around the hooves that are sticking out and pull it out. And,
Yeah,
oh.
you got these tongs and you back up the Willie's Jeep and come on.
I'm telling you. Well, even here, when the dairy was active, you could go over off of Blag and park. They had the birthing pens right there, and you could
Oh,
watch
no
them. You
kidding.
could watch
So-
the cows.
We're not-
Not anymore, no.
Wow.
No, they moved everything out to Amagosa, the one that was here in
I
town.
remember when I grew up on a dairy farm too, we got to see a lot of that for pigs.
Mhm.
And then cows giving birth, two-headed calf. That was very
Wow. Oh my God. Here's a rarity. Yeah.
On page 159, I discovered something interesting. Not only do the lamps have to be attended to 24/7 and the light must never go out, but same with the fire on the altar. It must be kept burning and it must never go
Time.
out.
Like two eternal flames, one inside and one outside. Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, so the people are constantly sinning?
Or is it kind of a witness of, God's
Yeah.
presence and holiness?
Right.
Maybe it's a picture of Him.
Well, they were probably constantly bringing offerings, because you don't have just sin and guilt, you have peace.
And
offerings that, you know,
Thanksgiving
Do
offerings.
you think the
all those other kind of
tabernacle
things.
operated 24/7?
Yep.
Maybe you
I
had
think it-
3
They
million
had enough people to keep
in
watch.
one tabernacle. Maybe it was 24/7.
In order to get it all on there.
That's why in
Yeah.
the synagogue, in front of the ark,
That's why the light's always on.
that's
I
the,
mean, you got so many
called the
things. You have
eternal
a
light.
skin infection.
Can't-
You find some mold on your wall. You.
Your husband's jealous of the wife and he brings her before the, yeah, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff
You
that
have
comes
a
up.
baby,
Yeah.
and heaven forbid that you have a female, because then you got double.
Oh,
time.
I discovered an answer to that.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll go
Did you?
further down.
Did you?
Okay,
Yeah.
well, on that same page then,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and they're talking about the grain offering,
Mm-hmm.
and I just put why, I don't know why, but when the leftover flour, after the offering,
Yeah.
Aaron's, the priest will bake it and eat it, but it must be made without yeast.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Everything
there's some
that
of
they
them
eat
that have
always
to
had
be made
done
with
without
yeast.
No, this is within the temple,
Okay.
Well,
the tabernacle.
one of the sacrifices had yeast in it.
Oh, within the courtyard of the
Mainly
tabernacle,
everything
okay, I
did
got it, I got it.
Well, on page
Mainly Everything
161,
offered did not.
yeah, on page 161, it's talking about peace offerings and it says, if you bring an offering, a peace offering is an expression of a thanksgiving, then
Right.
your usual annual sacrifice must be accompanied by various kinds of bread made without yeast, and it goes on to explain what kind those are. And then it says, this peace offering of thanksgiving must also be accompanied by loaves of bread made with yeast.
that's why we have our communion of Thanksgiving offered
Right.
with yeast.
Yep.
And that's proof right there. I think the ceremonial laws in this book are genius.
Yeah.
They're genius. They were put together by a genius for a reason. The reason is sin nature thinks, oh, I know, I can please God. I can follow the rules.
I believe it's.
This thing is so unbelievably complex that nobody, no matter how they love the God, no matter how smart, no matter how disciplined, there is no
They
way
could not ever.
you can get it
duplicate
right every time when you're doing these things, even if
Right.
you're running and looking at the manuscript to make sure, now, do I do this? Do I do that?
Yeah, and it says one of
This
each.
this brings home to every human being that you can't,
Yeah.
you cannot obtain
Well,
God's
and
holiness.
look at
It's
the
impossible.
responsibilities that the generations of the priesthood had of trying to teach the next generation everything that they need.
No,
and
don't
make
slaughter
a
it there.
mistake.
No, you can't dump the ashes. No,
mean,
the blood goes.
you
You've
know,
got to
wow.
put them on the
I
horn.
mean,
You got to
that's-
You
swear.
forgot to
Very
salt
difficult.
the offering.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you read in, was it Exodus? Yeah. Moses, no, was it Moses or Aaron? Aaron chewed out his sons because they didn't do the sacrifice on the correct pile of rocks. They did it over on that pile of rocks. He said, "Oh, what have you done?
Yep.
We're doomed." I'm thinking,
Well,
they're doomed because they picked the wrong pile of rocks?
Right
Well,
after
I mean, look at the two
immediately
sons
after.
that used the wrong incense.
Or what is that
Well,
story?
they
we'll
did
never really
something
know.
completely.
We'll never
yeah.
really know what they did.
Yeah.
It was
I mean,
unauthorized fire before the Lord.
Page
Yeah.
165, anybody's looking for it.
Ah, yeah.
It's right smack dab in the middle. And I would love to hear what you think really went wrong there. I
Well,
don't
right after
think-
they died, God said, "You and your descendants must never drink wine or any before going in there."
It was right after that. I
That
agree
may have
with
been
you.
what these two young guys did.
I agree with you. I think they were lax or maybe a little casual.
Yeah.
Well, it says that they put coals of fire in their incense burners. Were they supposed to do that?
I wondered.
Are they supposed to sprinkle incense over them?
I wondered.
And it just says in this way they disobeyed the Lord by burning before him the wrong kind of fire.
The wrong kind of fire.
But
Yeah,
the thing
it-
about wine was
Other
right
versions,
after that.
yeah, other versions stay it a different way.
Different than he
So
did,
some
yeah.
say it's an unauthorized fire, so they prepared it incorrectly, or they didn't do it right, or they flagrantly disregarded the commands. But for whatever reason, fire came out from the Lord and consumed them. So, I mean, it wasn't just oh, oops, you picked the wrong pile of rocks. This was an atrocity that was an outrage to the Lord that would defile his name. And so it made me think that maybe they were trying to take the glory for themselves. Oh, well, if that's what happens when we do this, maybe we should go in there and do some more of that.
Right.
You know, and we'll look like the. So it might have been an attitude problem.
Yeah.
I think,
It reminded me of what Isaiah was saying, how the holiness of God is almost like antibiotics. It goes against
It attacks
any
whatever is
disease,
unholy.
Any infection.
Well-
And if there was anything that was off, the holiness of God would just go.
Yep.
What
And
is
it
the,
sounds like that's what happened.
the
Yep.
explanation that's given by Moses to Aaron?
Or from Aaron
I
to
don't-
Moses.
No, then Moses said to Aaron, this is what the Lord meant when he said,
Right.
I will display my holiness through those who come near me. I will
Right.
display my glory before all the people. And Aaron was silent.
Right. And
It
Aaron
doesn't-
was
To me,
silent.
that, I don't get the explanation.
I don't get the explanation on the other
Yeah.
side when
I'd have to
Moses
read the
says,
whole thing, but I may not get it either.
Yeah. It's hard to
Um,
understand.
the other thing that I don't get is then, you know, he tells them, do not show grief or you will die. Don't tear your clothes.
Yeah.
Don't let your hair be
Yeah.
uncombed. But then he comes down to the bottom and and then Moses walks up to the two boys. He's not even talking to Aaron. And he says, why didn't you eat the sin offering in the sacred area? It's a holy offering.
Yeah,
The
that's-
Lord's given it to you to remove the guilt of the community and to purify the peoples, making them right with the Lord. Since the animal's blood was not brought into the holy place, you should have eaten the meat in a sacred area as I ordered you.
Yeah.
And then Aaron answered, and Moses wasn't even talking to him. Today my sons presented both their sin offering and their burnt offering to the Lord, and yet this tragedy has happened to me. If I had eaten the people's sin offering on such a tragic day as this, would the Lord have been pleased? And Moses, when he heard this, was satisfied. And I was like, well, then explain it to me, because I'm not.
That's what I was meaning about the sacrifice on the wrong pile of rocks.
Oh.
That's the
I thought
passage
you meant these
that he
guys.
was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He said,
they
Thought you meant
didn't
that.
eat it.
You
They
ate it at the
didn't-
wrong spot. And I'm thinking,
Well, they didn't eat it at all. They let it burn up completely on the altar
They
without
let it
eating
go
it
to
or
the Lord.
presenting the blood and purifying the people. So that part I get, but
so what's the overall meaning of all this?
yeah,
It's a,
I don't
you
know.
don't take,
You don't take
you don't
the
take
Lord's
the-
commands for granted.
yeah, you don't.
And you
be
don't take
flippant.
his presence
You don't-
for granted. You don't run in the sanctuary. Period.
Don't play ball in the house.
That's right. Don't play ball in the house.
Don't run with scissors.
And
Don't
that
run with
reminds
this.
me about one of my questions, page 158.
Because he knows sin, that if you allow them the crack,
Oh, yeah, they'll take them
Tomorrow,
They'll
down.
exploit
it'll
it.
be
Yeah.
bigger and pretty soon.
Right.
doesn't exist.
Okay, 158. Go.
All right, middle section. Then the Lord said to Moses, if one of you commits a sin by unintentionally defiling the Lord's sacred property, you must bring a guilt offering. What do you suppose that would be? How do you unintentionally defile
Defile
the
sacred
sacred
property.
That suggests to me it's something you do wrong at the tabernacle.
It's
Would that mean crowding in line at the entrance?
possibly,
Maybe it wasn't.
possibly misusing his utensils, which are held holy, the gold and silver utensils held holy for certain purposes.
Could have walked by it.
And if,
Oh, licking the
Clothing
bread
that-
knife instead of washing
Whatever.
it? Using the fork to scratch my back instead of,
But
Lackadaisical
but only
attitude.
the priest can touch them. We're not talking about,
Could be something
One of
similar
us.
to what he yelled at them about as far as not eating in the right place too.
or not sprinkling the blood, or not dipping the,
what, don't use the sacred fork for a back scratcher.
yeah.
Or maybe they might have touched
Your
a
clothes.
carcass of an unclean animal and not even realize, not
Yeah.
make-
Well, an unclean
Oh.
animal
There you
wouldn't
go.
be on the altar to burn because.
maybe if you
But I
went
mean,
to the
on
tabernacle
Sunday.
and you were unclean,
Right, if you were unclean.
that would be defiling his property. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you
big
didn't
time.
know it, and your part of your clothing touched something unclean.
Or you
You
forgot
went
to
in
put
there.
on your linen undergarments and exposed yourself to the
So
altar.
that one was very strange to me.
That
He
would-
put on the undergarment.
The linen undergarments were very important so that your nakedness would not show when they climbed the stairs of the altar.
Yeah, so if they forgot to put them on or they were dirty that day,
were
didn't have their drawers on.
And another thing he talked about is the reason he chose linen instead of wool, because
Yeah.
he didn't want them to sweat in his presence.
Ah, yeah, he didn't want them to sweat
Does
in
not
presence.
like man
That's
sweat.
true.
And
because
that
he wants us
answers,
to rest.
that answers the age-old question, boxers versus whitey tighties. It's boxers, guys.
Funny after I
So I don't know, it's not-
TMI.
Linen boxers.
Boxers.
after I read that you're not to touch an unclean thing, my cat
We
she wants to
digress
go
so
out and
easily.
she had a mouse.
Oh,
Actually,
Oh,
is your cat a
She's-
cat an
she's
unclean
outdoors.
thing?
yeah,
Yes.
any animal with
It has
paws
paws.
is unclean.
Dogs, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so your cat is
So
too.
you can't have dogs and cats.
no.
Or
According to
eat them.
this law,
Well, you couldn't
can't.
eat them, you
Or
could
rub
have them.
'em,
Matter of fact,
or love
you
on
better
'em.
have them. Keep the
In the
nuts
law.
and rat population down.
Unintentionally defiling the Lord's sacred.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too.
All 4th of July, that dog was in my lap.
Well, and now I've
I
got
like
this
that.
old,
I just can't eat a whole.
well, and now I understand this whole, you know, you don't drink in the morning. Because he gave the law. Then the Lord said to Aaron, 166, second
I
paragraph.
haven't told him about whining yet.
Then the Lord said to Aaron, you and your descendants must never drink wine or any other alcoholic drink before going into the tabernacle. If you do, you'll die. And I thought, oh, that's why people don't drink before they go to work. They do it after. It carried over.
Most
Wow,
people
way
are,
back
thousands of
when.
years.
People would read that.
most people are so happy with what they do for a living, that's why they drink.
Yeah, okay.
They're so happy to get home, not have to work anymore.
Do people not know how to tell with birds whether they're male or female? Is
I
that
don't.
Huh?
You know, with the animals,
tell the
you would
sex
say
of
male or female.
The males are the most colorful.
Right.
That's one.
It doesn't seem like birds matter. You know, it's just two of them.
Yeah.
It didn't say a male or female.
Or two males or two females, or
I
no, if it's this kind of an offering, it's got to be a male turtle dove and a female pigeon, and
It didn't say
it doesn't specify with
No.
these. It's
I
just
wouldn't
turtle
have a
doves
clue.
and pigeons.
Other than color.
But you noticed in all this,
like cardinals.
fish
and-
are never mentioned.
Can't
Yeah.
sacrifice fish, yeah. So why are they eating that on Friday?
They don't breathe.
They don't
there.
bleed. Oh, yes. they
But there are clean fish and unclean.
Yeah,
That's for
they're
sure.
mentioned in the clean and the
That's for
unclean.
sure.
Oh, I agree.
What?
Catfish.
Sushi.
All right, let's get to 169.
Now, I did have one more.
Oh, go ahead.
I try to visualize how this tabernacle is operating.
Mhm.
3 million people out there, this little handful of priests that have just been consecrated. We're going to read later in the Bible that the whole tribe of Levi, if they were a certain age and above, they could serve, and they start this rotation. They must have started the rotation at the get-go.
Yep.
This is no way something that Aaron and his boys can handle. It's possible. It's just
5 people
impossible.
couldn't have done it 24/7.
For example, page 160,
look.
this is just a little detail. In the case of the burnt offering, the priest may keep the hide of the sacrificed animal. Do you realize how much time somebody is spending
On hides?
skinning
Curing
animals
hides.
off to the side and then curing the hides? I figure they had warehouses out there to
That's what the
handle
women are for.
That's what the women are for. That's what the women are for. The women were doing it, not the priests. That's what the women
Sorry.
were for.
Hurry, run, Mike.
I
I'll
don't
protect you.
know.
I just had to go there.
Been hanging around with him for a while.
I don't know that women would be strong enough. I've never skinned an animal in my life. I don't know.
That's a hell of a sharp knife.
But if you had to skin a bull for crying out loud,
That's a pelt, not a skin.
God,
You're heavy.
yeah.
I would think that in the court area, they had to get all these organs out and the flesh out.
Yes.
So the hide is off.
So I'm
And
thinking
so
it's
I would
already been
think
cured.
maybe the
sort of.
priest could take that
book,
home.
That book and the other book you had showed it.
What?
where they-
Yeah, it
Where they had the
shows, or at
hides.
least suggests that there are some guys working over at the side.
Well, I mean, you've got the whole tribe of Levi involved
got-
in
you
this
got-
too,
Yes.
so it's not
That
just
has to be what they
the
did.
priests
50,000
in the
of them.
tribe.
But as far as the Levi tribe, it wasn't like 17 guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
You're talking about
Hundreds.
17,000 guys.
14,000 of
You're
them.
talking huge number of
families.
people, and they didn't have, I can't remember
In certain set,
why, what order was set up before David, but when King David came up, he created the official order of service of what the priests do and when they do it.
That's
And
right.
that is what went all the way through, even past our Lord's birth. They followed David's orders.
but we'll read instructions further on where the tribe of, within the tribe of Levi, the sons of Mariari, they're the ones that have to take down the tent pegs and
Yeah.
That's right.
the outer tents and the
Yes.
outer wrappings,
Yes.
and they do this, and only the priests of the line of Aaron are allowed to
The Queens.
touch and cover and
Yes.
move the
That's right.
things in
The tabernacle.
the tabernacle and the Holy of Holies themselves. But all the other tribes had their, you gotta clean and carry and wrap the hides, and you gotta do the tent pegs, and you gotta do the posts, and your tribe does the burnt
So it was
altar and all of the,
organized, so.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
like, well, they were moving an army.
yeah.
They were moving a nation every time they
knew what to
moved.
do every time they moved.
Didn't like they moved every week.
No, but
Right.
they had to be
Sometimes they were
organized
Well,
to do it.
sometimes they were moving the same day, the cloud only rested temporarily, and they rested, they ate, and then it rose again. So,
You can imagine all the little kids talking to their parents.
Yeah, I can.
Are we gonna get there yet? Just like
Are we
on
there
a
yet?
road
Yeah.
trip. Are we there yet?
Ten-
We've been
10
walking
more
for
minutes.
days.
Not until we all die off.
well,
Not in
yeah,
time, not until I die.
Right.
Oh, well then, can we help you along your way?
can we help you along the way?
In just the firstborn of Levi, there were 22,000.
Oh, wow.
Firstborn. So there are others,
It came along.
Yeah,
that
they're-
every
yeah.
file. So there was quite a few Levites to be able to,
Oh, that's amazing.
Support the whole
yeah.
structure.
Plenty of people.
I've got-
Okay, so I
I mean,
came,
they had so many at Jesus' time that, John the Baptist's father it appeared only served once.
Only the one time. In all the years he was eligible. Wow.
so
you
page 169, and the age-old question that nobody's ever been able to answer, why is a woman after childbirth of a baby boy only has to wait 7 days and then an additional 33, but if it's a girl, God
It's
forbid,
double.
it's 14 days
Because
and
y'all cause so much
66 days.
trouble.
Because God said,
That's-
No,
that's
I got
God
an
said.
answer this morning.
I
There's your answer right
I
there.
got an answer this morning.
Oh, okay, tell us the answer.
Okay, just like sin, you can't sin and it not affect everybody around you. Well, it's the same with childbirth. You can't give birth to a child and not affect the whole community. So, well, I'll explain. Fast forward
Don't catch this
to
pregnancy.
present time. LGBT. Oh, but God made a mistake and I was meant to be born a boy. Well, explain that to the entire community. Did your mom not know when she waited these however many days and then these how many days and then the community waited these however many days for your peace offering and your purification ceremony? Did they not know what sex the baby was when she went through all of this? How can you sit there and say, oh, God made a mistake? No, the entire community made a mistake. So everybody's wrong but you?
Well, in today's world, yes.
So I just thought God knew this was going to happen, and He gave us this unanswerable, age-old question that everybody's perplexing with, and that was the answer. I
Not
thought,
everybody's perplexing with it,
No, a lot
well,
of people aren't.
but still.
One that have a problem.
you know.
Yeah, the poor doctor who gives a young man circumcision must really have a problem when the guy says, but I'm a girl. It's just like, oh,
Well, I don't know if they do at that age.
Yeah, not at 8 months, 8 days.
no. No, I was just being
I know.
Facetious, yeah, really.
I agree with you.
I've got one more logistics question, page 161.
161.
All right, I'm just trying to visualize how this works. If you bring an offering to fulfill a vow, or as a voluntary offering, the meat must be eaten on the same day the sacrifice is offered, but what is left over may be eaten on the second day. Any meat left over until the third day must be completely burned up. If any meat from the peace offering is eaten on the third day, the person who presented it will not be accepted. You kidding me? You mean Neil Owen brought this offering 3 days ago, and he did everything right, but somebody was in charge of storing that meat for what left over from day one, and then left over from day two. Somebody was in charge of seeing through it that it was burned up, and if it wasn't, it makes it sound like Neil's sacrifice made a couple days before was
He's
null
halfway back
void.
to He's halfway back to Bethlehem,
And
now
he doesn't even know about it. Yeah. Weird. And how do they store the meat? I figured they must
Well, I
have
think
stored
that's
it
why
in
they have
water.
limits on it,
Well,
because
they
they
weren't,
didn't.
Yeah.
we're not talking about raw meat, we're talking about cooked meat.
Oh no, that's true. Oh, we're talking about cooked meat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that helps. That helps. It is
But
cooked.
still, you
No,
know,
32
after
days is good
X
enough.
amount of days, you shouldn't.
And they
I wonder if they
were
stored it like
used
underwater.
to eating
keep it
yucky
cold.
meat. A little green on the meat didn't mean much.
That's
Well,
all
think
about
of how many of them there are.
Penicillin, you know.
There's 22,000 men.
Yeah.
I don't care that you've got this barbecue going 24/7. You're still probably not feeding them all.
Yeah.
I seriously doubt any meat could last until the third day with all those people in the tribe of Levi alone eating. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of kids and wives and daughters and there's lots of
And
mouths
animals.
to feed.
That's true.
wow. I think there might be, there's a person who brings an offering,
Yes.
and then the priest presents the offering. And is it talking about the priest? Because it says you will, the person who presented it will not be accepted by the Lord. And I'm
And
wondering,
that is the
maybe
priest.
it's, maybe
who
it's the
stored it.
I'm
presenter.
wondering if it's the priest is the one
It's the
who
presenter.
presents it.
Yeah.
The person
could
is
be.
the one who brings it.
Okay.
Maybe.
That would make sense to me.
Because ultimately, the priest would be responsible for making sure that it was
Burned up.
burned up.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 days is the limit.
We can find somebody to blame.
Oh
This
yeah.
is also particular to the peace offering.
Yes. Because if it's not the peace offering, it has to be done in 2 days, not even in 3. I mean, the 3rd day it's bad. If it's not that offering, it's bad on the 2nd day.
Well, we're supposed to eat it, on that
Right.
day. Yeah. That's bizarre.
There doesn't seem to be one particular way you present an offering for whether it's sin or peace or Thanksgiving. It seems like there's a variety of different ways that you can offer the sacrifice for this, because they talk about so many different ways of dealing with the sacrifices, and they throw these words out of peace and goodwill and love and sin
Way.
offerings, will and
Purification,
guilty.
ordination.
Yeah.
Like guilt and sin are 2 different kinds. The guilt offering is different than the sin offering, and my thought is, so the guilt offering sounds like it's when it's unintentional, you didn't know,
Yeah.
but the sin offering is more deliberate, like stealing and cheating and
Premeditated.
what I thought was
Yeah.
interesting too, though, is that God holds you responsible vertically and horizontally with those kind of sins. If you steal, not only do you have an offering to get yourself right with Him, but
Yeah.
you also
Got restitution
give
to make it,
back
to make
what
it up
you took
horizontally.
and 20% more.
Yes.
Which I thought
Yes.
it didn't get you off the hook. Sometimes we'll go, well, the Lord forgave me, and we act like we're not responsible for
the
damage
consequences.
we've done this way.
Yeah.
Right.
But in the Old Testament, God held people responsible both ways,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is right.
Giggle about that.
Well, you still have that way today. People are supposed to love one another. And stealing is
Couldn't
not
be held
love.
accountable.
I did see a connection between the disease and one of the things, if it was a skin disease, we don't tear our clothing and we don't go with our hair uncombed, but it says cover your mouth. It says call out unclean. So
Yeah,
you're
but how do you do
separate-
that with your mouth
you're
covered?
separate
Oh,
from
clean! But my mouth
live
is
in
covered.
isolation. Live in isolation outside of the camp.
COVID.
There is a lot.
First use of face masks.
Yeah, it's COVID.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot of what.
They had COVID-19 back then? Wow.
No, it was a
Sounds
different
like
number
it.
for
Where,
COVID.
where is that in here? Does anybody know that business about cover your face and unclean?
Yes, it's, I marked
Page
it.
171.
171? Okay.
Yeah,
We
right
might
down
be
here at
out
the
of the
very
realm
bottom.
here.
No,
Second to
go
last
out.
sentence.
175.
Right there.
Yeah, okay.
That's
They
the
must cover their
demarcation.
mouth,
point.
right there.
Oh, yeah.
Did you find it?
Found it.
171, second to the bottom. Second sentence from the bottom.
Okay.
They must cover their mouth and call out unclean, unclean.
But it's isolated.
Yeah,
You're
to the
covering
top of the
yourself.
next page, it
You're
says they
claiming
must live in
unclean.
isolation.
It-
And live
it's
outside
a
the
lot
camp.
like what
That's
we're
so everybody
dealing
around
with.
you can run away, run away.
Right.
And scream and yell and.
If you're a leper and
That's
Because
a
that's
leper,
what
yeah,
you're
they must live in isolation in
wound
their
up with
place
all this
outside the camp.
yell unclean, unclean, in a crowded street, if somebody bumped into you and you even stuck your head into the doorway of a business, a shop, that whole shop had to be emptied and washed
Purified.
and purified and wait 7 days.
That's how it's gonna be
And the
around
whole
here.
thing.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I found it interesting on the top of page 173. Third sentence or third line down from the second paragraph. Persons being purified must wash their clothes, shave off all their hair, bathe in water. Then they'll be ceremonially clean and may return to the camp. However, they must remain outside their tents for 7 days.
Isn't that a
What's the
lot?
good of returning to the camp if you can't go in?
At least you're a little closer
Well,
to
maybe
your
your
family.
neighbor will give you.
So what are you gonna do? You're gonna sit outside the tent door and go, I'm hungry, feed me.
And how
Throw
do
me
you,
my blankie. I wanna lay down.
how do you shave back then?
I don't
Wasn't
know.
that the Bronze Age?
A knife? So they got something sharp.
Well, they bound the
They're
bucket
cutting up animals.
utensils to be able to shave with.
And then you had to wait 7 days and then shave again.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, when my big razor is used, it
Used
hurts.
Well, yeah, you gotta
You
use
gotta
it
keep them sharp.
more than once.
You guys would not know anything about that.
I shaved
I shave
for
under here all the time.
He does.
my entire career. That's why I don't shave now.
Okay, I got a question. What is this business about slaughtering the bird over a clay pot filled with fresh water?
Oh, and not just fresh water, little cedar and some hyssop.
But I mean, yeah, but I mean, he has to slaughter the bird over, what is the purpose of that? So that it catches, and then he has to take all of that
You'll
stuff
have to ask when you get there.
and dip it
Homework.
in the blood, in the water. Okay, isn't the bird gonna go
No, I think.
like
you
a
do-
dog when it gets wet?
I don't-
Shake it all off?
Now, you're
The
talking
bird's
about the
dead,
second
buddy.
bird?
I think.
Yeah,
I
the
think
live
by
one.
time you
The live
cut him
one, I
open,
read
he's not
this,
gonna
they
be-
actually took that poor bird and they
That
tied
poor
it
bird.
to a plank so they could dunk it. And then they
Well, if you don't
released
do it
it.
to a chicken, he'll run around.
That
Yeah.
must have been their sports at that time, you know? Their entertainment.
That's why they didn't use chicken.
That's right,
Yeah,
because they will. Put a head on it, go, boop.
they had to have
There
some
you
kind
go.
of entertainment.
You didn't know that?
I've seen a decapitated chicken
Yeah,
running
they just
around.
ran, they
Yes,
just run
I've seen
around.
Yeah,
it.
it's awful. They'll do that until,
They run just like, yeah.
they're tired and they know they don't
Till
have
they're
a head.
Tired, I'm
How
tired.
about dead?
Yeah, dead tired.
Until they're tired
Until
and
they
dead.
realize their head has been
Yeah.
chopped off.
How are they gonna
Sick
realize
and
it was
tired
that
of
bad?
having no head.
I watch too much the last Alaskans and how they live.
No, I don't watch any of that. Lost,
Man,
Alone.
it's some hard living.
okay.
They can
All right,
have it.
Mike, close us out since you weren't here earlier.
Yeah.
All right. You know, I had a feeling, but I was hoping for that. Father in heaven, we thank you, God, for this whole day. You're just opening things up and moving on like only you can move, giving us strength and helping us to overcome anything that comes our way. What came to my mind today was Romans 5:20, where people are going crazy because of all the sin, but your word says where sin abounds, that your grace and mercy abounds even more. And so we can rest in that, and we can have peace in that, and we can be confident in that each and every day, that your power and your love and your will and your plan overrides everything that's going on in this world. So we give you honor and glory. We thank you for what you're doing. Continue to grow this Bible study and protect our church. And we love you and praise you and give you all the honor and glory. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, guys.
Oh,
And we didn't
Your Swiss
mention Charlton
chard.
Heston once tonight.
Huh?
Well, you just
Mention
did.
Charlton Heston once tonight.
Or Ben Hur
Ben
or
Hur.
anything.
Oh,
we got it covered. Don't forget your Swiss chard. Did you get it, Karen?
oh, she did.
Did I get what?
Your Swiss
What are you
chard.
doing?
I had to go get
I
his box.
will go
don't
get it
know.
right now.
I don't
Neil,
know
did I
what's
get
anybody